Hey guys, welcome back to the Woman's Hustle, Thrills and Spills of Entrepreneurship. It is your girl, Coach K, and thank you so much for tuning in. Before we get started, you know what I'm going to ask, right? If you have not already, please make sure you subscribe to the Upgraded Mindsets Media channel so you are getting the best of both podcasts, which is the Woman's Hustle, Thrills and Spills of Entrepreneurship, as well as Empowering Real Talk and all the other amazing content coming off the media channel. If you're listening audio wise, then make sure you favorite the podcast on your favorite streaming platform. And I appreciate the support. Your feedback has been amazing, guys. Keep it coming. I definitely love it. Honored, but I have the honor of having Miss Mary Beth O'Connor here with me. How are you doing, Mary Beth?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
I'm so glad to have you. I am glad to have you. So please share with my listeners a little bit about your backstory and what got you here today.
Yeah, so I have a memoir which sort of gives you the arc of it, and it's called From Junkie to Judge, One Woman's Triumph Over Trauma and Addiction. And all of those words, of course, were chosen carefully. But basically, the arc is that, I grew up in a really abusive household, physically abusive, sexually abusive, and also just not a parent who was, bonded to me or paying attention. And so for me, as many others, that led to early drug use. And I was shooting meth by 17. I was in full bore addiction until 32 when I finally got sober. At which point, I had to rebuild my life, right? It's like, well, I had a Berkeley degree and good grades, but I had what I say, instead of working my way up the corporate ladder, I had worked my way down the corporate ladder.
Right.
Because of my addiction, right? And so I had to sort of be realistic. For example, no one was hiring me for a career job. That wasn't going to happen. But also I wasn't ready for it. And so I started where I was. I got my first job home from rehab was a part-time, temporary, low-level administrative job. And then my second job was a permanent, full-time, a mid-level administrative job. And then I got a supervisory job at a larger company, got a promotion. And then at 6.5 years sober, when I was 39, I went to Berkeley Law School. And then I worked in a big law firm, and then I did government work as an attorney. And then at 20 years sober, when I was 53, I was appointed a federal administrative law judge. And so that's sort of the professional arc. But I also had to, work on my sobriety, work on my mental health from the trauma and all of that. And now I'm retired, and I do a wide variety of things that I'm happy to talk about as well.
Absolutely. Oh my God. All of that, and I know you talk about the story, and it's amazing because you shared it with me prior, but just all of that, we're definitely going to unpack some of that, because you have more of a non-traditional journey, but I also love the transparency of the beginning, because a lot of times we will suppress those.
Yes.
We won't talk about that stuff. We will say, hey, that's not relevant now, but I love that you have turned that into the pivot, the critical level of your resilience. I think it is amazing. And let's just talk about the fact that you went from a junkie to a judge. And I think that's the title of your book, if I'm not mistaken, right?
It is. It is. Yeah.
I love it. And so even as you retired, right? Because going into the corporate side of things, we definitely are here talking about the entrepreneurial side of things. How was that transition when you decided that you wanted to retire? Because if I read correctly, it was in 2020, correct?
Yeah, it was in 2020, and I was having some medical things going on, but so I always emphasize it was early. But I mean, I was only 59. It's not like, and I was certainly, my health is certainly well enough that I can be active. I just can't do what I was doing at that level. And so it was a time of reevaluation. I don't want to sit at home and watch TV. That's not useful. But also, because I was retired, I could talk about my drug use and my trauma history and my recovery in a new, more open way, because I didn't have to worry about the professional ramifications. And so it gave me an opportunity to think about, what are the things I like doing? For example, I'm a good writer. I enjoy writing. I was already working on my book, but I started doing opinion pieces. I had pieces in the Wall Street Journal and the Los Angeles Times and Recovery Today and others. I'm used to speaking. I mean, I was a lawyer and a judge. And so I do a lot of different types of speaking. podcasts, some TV, radio, but also I created a bunch of different workshops for different audiences. So I do workshops at conferences and I train lawyers and judges, but also I like that interaction. And so I really enjoy engaging with people, talking about their concerns or offering guidance like to friends and family of people struggling. So it was really an evaluation of sort of what do I like doing and how can I focus on what I like doing and turn it into a way of being service to my community, of being part of the education process and of trying to help reduce stigma.
Oh my goodness. That is right there because you just described your purpose, Mary Beth, and I love it. I love it. And it is, when we are in corporate America, in whatever capacity, it does put a big limitation on what we want to do. And what I have found, coaching women these last 4 years is that's where a lot of them are. They don't really know what their purpose is in life because they have to pay the bills. They're looking at it from the financial standpoint and it is totally frustrating them, and they just don't know where to, even start. But they're afraid to start because of, anything that might happen from the corporate side of things. Because it's safe to say that you were doing a little bit of advocacy, being a judge and things like that. But I know it didn't, bias your opinion on in cases or whatnot, but were you doing any type of advocacy, during your tenure as a judge?
Yeah, so I was already on the board for Life Rank Secular Recovery, and I was already on the board for She Recovers Foundation. And I think that you're right. It's important. Look, there are different phases of life, and at different phases of life, we have this sort of the bandwidth and the ability to do different things. Like, for example, a woman who is also a mother, her ability to, give back or be of service may be very limited because of the other demands. But, 5 years later, she may be able to do more. And in retirement, you have another new opportunity. So I hope your viewers, don't feel guilty or that you should be doing more than you're actually capable of doing. There will be other times in your life cycle that you will have other opportunities. And that's how I viewed it. So as a judge, I was on the boards and I did that work. And so it was out there, if you looked at the website, that I was in recovery, but that's a different level of disclosure than talking about shooting meth at 17 or being raped or, all those other things. So it was a different level of disclosure and a more narrow focus.
Yep. And being able to be more open about that, I know that it has kind of made things mentally easier for you.
Yes.
Because I definitely advocate for that, as being on the board for my local NAMI affiliate here. Mental health and mental health awareness is like so critical to me because that's something that, again, we will suppress. We will not even have the conversation surrounding it because we don't feel like that it is a part of it, when in all actuality, it's probably the biggest part of us, because I guess it's safe for me to say with you that is also a part of your continued sobriety, is making sure that your mental well-being is intact.
Yes. And let me just say, I actually present to a lot of local NAMI chapters. So if you ever want me, let me know.
I will definitely let you know.
But you're right. I mean, I had so substance use disorder, which is the modern name for addiction, that is a mental health condition. I mean, it's, categorized that way. But I also had PTSD and I didn't realize it. And for me, it showed up as very severe anxiety. So it actually took me more work to get my anxiety under reasonable control than to get my substance use under reasonable control. And so I had to work on that for longer. But yes, it's important, it's in the corporate world as well. There's sort of a new understanding that there's a new focus on wellness and, making resources available, whether it's substance use or just mental health in general. There's not enough, but it's very common. And it's really beneficial for employers to help the employees they have deal with the issues than to have to go out and hire somebody new and train somebody. I mean, it's cost effective for them to make resources available, but it doesn't always happen.
Absolutely. I agree. So much so. And that's one thing that, people ask me all the time, how does, life and business coaches, how do you mix that together? Because I work with mindset transformation, but also entrepreneurial purpose, because in order for us to elevate our entrepreneurial purpose, we have to make sure that personal purpose is set as well, because you can't have havoc over here and still try to operate this effectively, because, hey, you can do things, But if you're operating in havoc, you really have to ask yourself, like, how effective is that truly going to be for your business, for your legacy, for your brand, whatever it is that you're presenting? You may not sell a particular product or service, but you do because of the book and whatever comes along with that. But you also are going to make sure, Mary Beth, that you have on a daily basis, hey, let me make sure that things are aligned with me. Let me make sure that, I'm in my best. But also, I know you can say that you are okay with those days where you may not always be 100% okay, and embracing those and understanding those.
And I will say, I think I'm a lot like you and a lot of your viewers. I'm sort of a goal focused, and I tend to overwork. Like, definitely overworking was a struggle. And I'm retired, and I still struggle with it. I still struggle with keeping it in my defined number of average hours per week that I want, my own, limitation. And it's hard because you can offer good opportunities and you don't want to say no, or, something comes up. I mean, it's really a challenge for so many of us to have that right balance. But you're right. If we don't have the proper balance, we're either not being effective or we're being miserable while we're doing it. And neither one of those are a good place to be.
No, not at all. And that's why I really created this podcast, because I really wanted other women entrepreneurs, whether they're far in their journey, they're just beginning it, or it's just even a thought for them. I want them to understand that these are emotions and things that you are going to experience. There are days where I'm like, oh my God, I've got to work 12 hours today because I've got a project that I need to meet, a deadline that I've got to do, or I've got, recordings to edit or things like that, because contrary to what people believe, I do not have a big team, even being 4 years as an entrepreneur. I don't, I am still a solopreneur in a lot of ways. So, but also understanding that where my weaknesses are, where my strengths are, where I have opportunities for people to help me collaborate, partnership. I think that is very critical. And is that something that you do, on your journey? Because you advocate a lot, you speak a lot. Does that inquire with you having, people to help you out with that?
Yeah. So there's a publicist at the book publisher that helps a little bit, but like 80, really probably 90% of the outreach I do on my own. And I found that it was really important to be organized, and every once in a while to stand back and look at the whole picture. Am I doing this efficiently? Yes. Could I do it more efficiently? How do I have my follow-up, schedule set so that I don't lose track of things? I have a spreadsheet for some things and a Word doc for other things. Is that the most effective approach to do it? But also it's about setting reasonable goals for the day and not feeling like there's always more, right, that you could be doing. Yeah. There's always more. Yeah. Yes. And so I've now tried to say, on Mondays, here's what I do. On Tuesdays, here's what I do. This is what's working for me now, to try to set sort of like an area of outreach or marketing or follow up on different days of the week. That's helped. But for all of us, it's trying to figure out how to balance it right in the rest of your life, and try to be as efficient as you can so that you're getting the most done in the least amount of time.
Goodness, you got to say it again, Mary Beth. So let me ask you, what impact are you continuous? Because I know you've already made an impact, but what impact do you want to have 50 years from now? What impact, what legacy are you trying to build within your organization or for your organization from it, right?
My goals are a couple. One is that I wanted to present, an example of successful recovery. And I use that junkie to judge. I mean, junkie is not a word I would use in general, but I use it as a showing the whole arc, to sort of say, no matter how horrible of a place you're in, there's still a path forward. And this is what recovery can look like, right? It's not even as if judge is the most important part of my recovery, because it isn't. It was my job, but it's an arc that is visible in just a few words. But part of it is I want to help reduce stigma around addiction, sort of increase empathy and understanding. I advocate for more readily accessible treatment. We don't have nearly enough treatment beds in this country for mental health or substance use. I talk to friends and family as well about what they can do to sort of encourage the person in the right direction. I talk to a lot of people who are struggling, but also I really educate. I mean, when I do trainings, I start like with the basics, like what is substance use disorder? Like what's the definition? What are the treatment options, and what are the, why would you do one over the other? And what are some sort of guidelines and tips? So it's trying to be part of the conversation, and multiple pathways. Like there's more than one way to recover. I did it by building sort of an individual plan tailored to me. When I got sober 30 years ago, that was uncommon, but today it's much more understood that we need to have mental health plans that are targeted to the individual's mental health conditions, their addiction severity, but also their life circumstances. Are they housed? Do they have childcare? What's their employment status? What's their relationship status? All of those things together. So it's just to try to be part of the education process, and to try to be a resource and sort of a reassurance that there's a path out.
I love it. I love it. I love it. There are a few women that I have actually worked with on the journey who, are also in recovery. And a lot of them, do have nonprofit organizations that they are trying to advocate and, make those differences as well. So I'm definitely going to make sure that I share your information with them, as well as your book. And because again, I am all about collaborations, partnerships. We don't have to be in the same city for us to advocate and make changes together. We don't have to be that, and I love your passion. It just comes through so much, and I love it. I absolutely do. So continue to do what it is that you're doing. But I want to jump into the title of the podcast, because I ask all my guests this, which is the thrills and the spills. So since you have, been on your advocacy journey full time, and doing what you do, can you share with us one of your biggest thrills along the way?
Well, I will say, when I had my first big major publication, I had an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal. And so that was a really exciting day. By far, it was the first really major land on something that I had written.
Yes.
And so that was a very exciting day. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And that is huge, because that's going to carry you for years on out. Again, a part of the legacy. I love it. Building that legacy. I love it. So with the thrills, absolutely has to come the spill. So please share with us, a vulnerable moment, a moment that, made you kind of question some things.
Well, I will say that, as people may know from reading these things, when you publish something like an opinion in the Wall Street Journal or elsewhere, there's a lot of trolls that like to respond to what you have to say, and they're not all very nice. Okay. So my friends had warned me, don't engage with the trolls. Like, don't engage. But even reading them was a little bit challenging, and I really had to sort of figure out how to emotionally distance from them. Like, if they would have been like having an honest debate about the issue, I would have been fine. But a lot of it wasn't that. It was just like this, nastiness, right? And so learning how to handle that, and trying to look for what are the sort of actually the valid points that I should be considering from just people that are venting.
Ooh, oh my goodness. Yeah, because we can definitely operate in emotion very fast. And next thing you know, we got the Twitter fingers. We are going back
That's
and forth,
right.
going back and forth. And I tell my clients that too. You have to sit back and you have to think about it for a second. Let's process that, because there are people out here whose intention is to trigger you in a negative manner.
Yes.
And that's one thing, because I was very much an emotional person. I'd react off everything with anger. That was the only emotion that I identify with before my journey started. But yeah, they are definitely a lot. So I love that you are like, hey, but you also got that support, because I think that's important. I know you have, the support of people who are continuing to, be that personal support, that entrepreneurial support, but just the overall support team. Everybody needs one. How's yours look for you?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, when I started looking at writing the book, and first of all, let me say, I was an excellent legal writer, but when I started thinking about writing a memoir, which was when I was appointed a judge, I actually read some memoir and I realized, you know what? I don't actually have the writing skills to do this. This is written like a novel. And so I had to be like honest with myself about, yes, you're an excellent legal writer, but you don't know how to do this well. And so I started taking classes, and, but also, and going to writers conferences, but that helped me build up a writers community. I started to have relationships within sort of the new area that I was entering into. And that gave me a lot of good information, but also support when I needed it. And so I agree that getting a community in the area that you're pursuing can be really extraordinarily valuable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ooh, Come on, Mary Beth. You dropped it. You dropping it. I love it. I love it. So before we get ready to close out of here, I would love for you to share just some inspirational words. There are a lot of us out here who could be on a journey similar to you, but think that it's too late for them, to begin an entrepreneurial journey or, not even a full-time one. But what kind of insight or inspiration would you give to my listeners to, just kind of keep them encouraged and let them know that it's never too late?
I mean, look, I got sober at 32 years old. I felt old. I had literally wasted my education, right? I mean, it was a tough spot, but I was able to move forward step by step, right? Like, what's the right next step? How do I get there? And I went to law school at 39. I graduated at 42. I mean, I was not a spring chicken, changed my career, started on a new trajectory, became a judge at, 53. I became a published author at 59. And I really started building my advocacy career when I was in my early 60s. And so it's really never too late for you to make your next decision about what you want to pursue or where you want to go. And I also do really encourage people to think about not just sort of what area of entrepreneurship or area of advocacy you want, but also think about what your skills are and what you actually enjoy doing, because there are so many ways we can give back, so many ways we can develop our own business or in, different areas. And it's important to match what you like doing with your area of interest and where your skills are.
Absolutely. Y'all heard what she said, okay? It is super important, okay? Super important. What's coming up for you, Mary Beth?
I'm going to be speaking in Missouri soon. And then I've got a couple of conferences set up for next year. I'm also starting to write again. I hadn't had time to write in the first year after the book came out because I was speaking so much. So I'm refocusing there. So I'm looking forward to that. And I will say, for anybody who has an opportunity for me, they can always message me through my website, which is junkie2judge.com. And that's also where like my opinion pieces are if you want to read those as well. So I'm very findable at this point. If you just Google Junkie to Judge, you will always find me.
And the link will be in the podcast show notes as well, guys. I always want to make sure that you guys are able to reach out to all the guests. This is just my way of, for one, being supportive to us as women, but also two, because everybody, may not need me as a coach or anything else, but may need that advocacy. They may need that support. They may want to be encouraged by, your inspiration as well, because I'm definitely inspired by it. You are the epitome of it's never too late to elevate. And I'm just so thankful that you were here to share your story, but also to inspire us, because you had kind of a non-traditional recovery, a non-traditional path. And I was excited to have you here on The Woman's Hustle, because I wanted my listeners to hear that as well. So I appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. All right, guys. Well, you know where you can find me at. If you have not by now, make sure you have subscribed to the YouTube channel. Make sure you have favorite the podcast on your streaming platform. And if you are interested in becoming a guest on The Woman's Hustle, Thrills and Spills of Entrepreneurship, the link to inquire would be in the podcast show notes as well. Let's have a quick chat, see if you are a good fit or if I'm a good fit for you, and let's make some things happen, all right? I appreciate you so much for tuning in. Share this with your people, folks. Keep the feedback coming. I appreciate y'all. Till next time.